fruit of the Spirit, as we're looking at each of the 9 fruits of the Spirit, we're going to look at various applications of that fruit. In other words, literally, in other words, not the sentence, in other words, but in other words, by studying other words. And we've already talked about forgiveness, and I'm sure, I trust you were able to see how much forgiveness is an expression of love. And then we did loyalty, which is an expression of love. And last week we ended with compassion, when we see something and it touches our heart, and we respond with action to be compassionate, to have compassion. So we're going to start with this odd word, deference. And the part of the word you do recognize and use more often, and that is defer. To defer is what it is. But let's look at the definition here. First, we have this. First, the opposite. The opposite word that I've chosen for deference is rudeness. Rudeness. And that might help you understand it a little bit. I thought about using unthoughtfulness, or selfishness. But in this case, I think well, the way we're going to look at deference, we'll go with rudeness. And here's a definition of deference: limiting my freedom in order not to offend those God has called me to serve. Limiting my freedom in order not to offend those God has called me to serve. Now, this is an interesting word, and I really like the word deference, because I believe that one of the ways we show love is we defer to what they like or what they want. We limit the freedom we have. We could just say, I get what I want. I have a right. That's a very American thing we can get caught up in, is claiming our rights. But what we're doing is, yes, we have the right. We have the freedom to do that. But at times, in order to express love, we limit our freedom in order to not offend somebody that God has brought into our lives. When I was in Indonesia, sometimes I say that, I'll make sure you know, I was a missionary in Indonesia from 1999 to 2009 for 10 years, and for trying to reach a Muslim people group. And because of that, I never went out of the house without long sleeves, at least past my elbow and down past my bottom, long, like tunic length. And the reason is because they felt that's how a woman should be modest. And I have freedom. I don't have to dress like that. In fact, in America, right, we have a right to bear arms. We can have bare arms. But I limited my freedom. Even though I have that freedom, I limited my freedom so I wouldn't offend them, so that I might be able to reach them with the truth of the gospel. If they perceive me as an ungodly woman, I could just stand my ground and say, well, I am. And the fact that I'm wearing shorts and sleeveless, it's a 95% humidity and 95 degrees. It's stinking hot. I don't want to be hot, so I have the freedom. I could do that, but I would lose the opportunity because of offending them with that. Pastor Gabe, when he's talking about this idea of not offending, he was very, very informative about how the Bible, it never says, don't be easily offended by them. Just change. Don't let the fact that's how someone dressed offend you. That's what we'd like it to say. We say, I can dress like that, or I can do that thing. It's all not a sin. But this is not what they're doing, not changing them. It's changing me. It's saying I can choose to limit my freedom because it matters to them. That's an interesting expression of love. And it's deference. You're deferring to what they want. You don't have to. You don't have to worry about being a rug that everyone will walk on because you're choosing this out of love for them. The verse is Romans 12:10, and this version is ESV. That's the one we use. If it ever doesn't have something marked like what version it is, it's ESV. Love one another with brotherly affection, and deference comes under this one more. Outdo one another in showing honor. So I'm going to read that again in New Living Translation. Love each other with genuine affection. Take delight in honoring each other. You can see that. That's like focused on how do I honor this person by what I do. And often that means I might have to limit my freedom. In NIV, it says, be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. It doesn't mean they're better than you. It just means you are choosing with your freedom to honor them by deferring to them. New King James, be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love, in honor, giving preference to one another. And a way to understand deference is it's similar to preference in sound, isn't it? And it's giving their wishes preference by choice. This isn't a bondage, it's a choice. Simply put, and this is on your card on the other side. Simply put, deference means to take care of others first and trust God to take care of our own needs. It means trusting others first. Taking care of others first and trusting God to take care of our needs. To take care of. Okay, let me put it so it fits your blanks, all right? Simply put, deference means to take care of others first and trust God to take care of our own needs. Sometimes if we feel like I understand what I should do to not offend that person or to show preference to them, honor them, but who's going to do that for me? What about my needs? That's what we can tend to do, and that isn't wrong, except deference says, God will take care of my needs. Can I trust him? Yes. If he's calling me to show deference to this person, then I can trust God to take care of me. And sometimes I have heard stories and had it happen to myself where God takes care of us far better than we would have taken care of ourselves. To us, it was selfishness. To him, it was blessing us for being his people among other people, for being like him. Simply, do I practice deference? Think about your own life. Do you practice deference? Maybe God has put it in your heart already and you didn't know its name. And maybe you already practice deference. Then I want you to think as we go through here, when can we show, where can I do it? Where can I show preference? And maybe when I started describing it, a person came to your mind. Oh yeah, this person, if I do this or this, it offends them, and I always get defensive and say, but I have a right to do that. Now you think, maybe I should. What could I do to show deference? Actually, to show love through deference. So let's go. Let's see what we do. When we show deference or defer to others, if that makes it easy for you, easier for us. First one, Matthew 5:9. Now, I didn't give you the scripture with it, did I? I did? The reference, but not the scripture itself. That would have been on a separate piece of paper, but I don't think I did that one. I only did one. No, I don't have it. No, the other one, that was on joy. I didn't print these. You'll just have to listen to me this time. Okay. This is Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. So you can see that making peace or doing things to help others to keep things peaceful sometimes takes deference. So when we show deference, we are peacemakers. That's your first blank there. We are peacemakers. We're not always supposed to be peacekeepers. It doesn't mean we throw down everything at any cost to make peace. But there are times when if we use deference, we could bring peace to a sad situation by not maybe standing up for our own rights, but deferring by choice, limiting my freedom. Still my freedom, but I want to limit it. Another thing we're doing is we are being gracious. That's where that word fits. We are being gracious. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. Sometimes deference is just expressed in our words. It isn't just action. It's sometimes, and maybe often, the way we defer is what we could have said, but we defer and don't say it. We're gracious in how we answer in order to not offend, in order to express love through that way, through deference. We are being gracious. Matthew 7:12. Does anyone recognize that reference? Grew up in the church, maybe? That verse is this, and I'm going to ask you if it has a name. Do to others whatever you would like them to do. This is the essence of all that is taught in the law and the prophets. What's that called? The golden rule. We are following the golden rule. The golden rule has been misquoted many times, hasn't it? People say, I just did to them what they did to me. That's the golden rule. No, the golden rule says we treat others as we would like to be treated, not how we are treated, but how we would like to be treated. How would you like them to treat you? And that is deference too. When we think, oh, I could give them back what they've already given me, but I'm going to defer. And I'm not going to do that because I'm going to treat them how I wish they would have treated me. Now, that doesn't mean we tell them that. All right? You know, I'm giving you this soft answer back, or I'm saying it this way because you didn't. But I'm doing it how I wish you would have done it. It's funny, we had a story about that. I don't know if Mom thought of it at the same time. My aunt, her sister Esther, was a counselor at one of our camps years ago. Had to be years ago, right? It was a long time ago. And one of her kids was named Sharon. It wasn't me, but one of the kids in her dorm. And she was sick the first couple days or first day or so, but she didn't want to go home. It wasn't, they kept her in a separate room, and it was like a 24-hour thing. And so my aunt took care of her, and she got better. And then wouldn't you know, my aunt got sick. And so she was in the room, and this one girl, young teenager, was taking care of her. And at one point she said, I'm giving you this blanket in case you're cold. Because when I was sick, I wanted you to give me a blanket, but you didn't. I think she was just being funny. But what in reality, we don't have to point out to them. I'm not treating you how you treated me. I'm treating you how I wish you treated me. Because we kind of lose the effect of it if we do that, right? But we can still do it. And we may, if you want to grouch to somebody, you can grouch to God. Say, she did not treat me this way, but I'm going to do it for you because I love you and because this is what you would do. I'm going to treat her not how she treated me, but by how I would have liked to be treated. But you can tell the Lord anything. So don't feel like I'll burst if I do that. Don't say, you didn't do this and I'm doing it. You don't have to burst. Just talk to God. You can talk to him. 1 Peter 2:16 says, Live as people who are free, that you should also should do just as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater. I'm sorry, reading the wrong one. 16, 17. Okay. Live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover up for evil, but living as servants of God. Honor everyone, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the emperor. Live as people who are free by not misusing our freedom, honoring others. So we show others honor when we show deference or defer to them. And so many verses tell us to honor one another and to honor, for example, this is a way to honor your parents. Even as they're aging, it doesn't give you a out. You know, there was no honor your parents till you're grown up, till you're an adult. Not there. It just says honor your parents. So there may be times when they want something and you will have to honor them. The best way to do that is to defer to what they want instead of what you want. And that's the way we honor other people, even our spouse. And by saying that, I mean you, because I don't have one. By by giving in. No, don't call it giving in, because then you'll feel you are owed. You're limiting your freedom. You're deferring your rights in order to say, I honor you. We show others honor. And then, this is the best one, John 13, 15 to 16. For I have given you an example. Oh, by the way, Jesus is speaking. For I have given you an example that you should do just as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Jesus says, follow his example. That's deference. Jesus deferred. We are being like Jesus. Being like Jesus. That was John 13, 15, and 16. It's to the right of that section, of that line. It may be there are times when you realize, I have a situation here. Now I can either do what I want to do, and it's not sin, it's okay, or I could be like Jesus. And Jesus would do this. Jesus would do it differently than I would. So I defer and do it Jesus' way, like he did. He was very deferent to people. He would defer his rights. He was the Son of God, and he allowed himself to die. So he deferred his right to be delivered from the cross and stop suffering. He did that for us. He deferred for us. So how do we show deference, or how do we defer? And maybe you're saying, well, those are what we're doing, but how do I do this? What are some ways besides your examples? Well, here, we'll look at some more. First one, put others first. Put others first. Think of what their need would be ahead of mine. This is something to start teaching children very young, because they don't want to defer to their siblings, do they? Me first, me first. Let me pick first. Even sometimes I think it'd be hard. They wonder, someone asked once, why is my name always last when we list our family? Because they were the youngest, right? And someone said, because you're the best. But it's sometimes means, maybe treating someone different than the standard way, because we're putting them first. And if you haven't done this with people closest to you, they might notice a difference. We also give up the right to be right. I see smirks. That's something that's hard to give up. But I am right. But we can give up the right to be right. That's, I think, what Jesus did sometimes. He was always right. He was always going to be right, and he was right, but he would not push his rights to be right on others. That's a really hard one to do. It's not just giving up the right to be right, it's giving up our rights. That's what this is, limiting my freedom. I was, I'm thinking, do I tell the story I heard about someone else or do I tell my story, which I think is less? I'll tell mine. And it did happen in Indonesia, but it wasn't Indonesia related. It was related to having a roommate. You can learn deference a lot by having a roommate or people you live with, right? Yeah. So Kelly was my roommate's name in Indonesia, and she was a fellow missionary. And apparently, she was supposedly hard. I didn't want to be the case, but her 1 year she came after we'd been together about 3 years at the in our house, two different houses. She came back from a visit home, and she said, "My family wonders how you can stay with me that long." And you know what? It takes I didn't think it was hard because God worked in my heart too through it. Because I remember after we'd been going around this new house, we had a routine. She slept in or did her devotions earlier than me. And when I got up and was finished, or I did mine earlier than her, and I would go out and get some water to drink, and I would unlock the back door because our house helper would come in at about 8 and she would come in. Well, I was unlocking the door at about 6 or 7. So it was still dark out. So I would unlock the back door just so she could get in. And then I'd go back and have the rest of my devotions. Well, I didn't realize it mattered so much. One day she said, "Why do you open the door for Ina?" That was her name. "Why do you open the door for Ina and not turn off the porch light?" I go, I it's still dark. And my heart, I was going, when I do it, it's still dark. We leave the porch light. Well, she said, you should just turn that off. And when you're opening the door, instead it's on at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. We haven't seen it and it's on. Why don't you just turn it off? Okay. So first I was a little bit, why don't you just walk over and turn it off when you get up? But I didn't say that, thank the Lord. So the next morning, as I was unlocking the door, I went, I'll turn off the light. But the Lord said something to me in my heart. Right then, when I was doing it, well, she likes the light off. It's still dark, should be on, but anyway. And then the Lord said, "Do you love Kelly enough to shut off the light?" Duh, of course I do. Then just shut off the light. I had a right. I was right. We didn't have to. She could have walked over there whenever she got up and done it. But this mattered to her. And the Lord said, "Do you love Kelly enough to turn off the light?" And when he put it that way, it was ridiculous. Of course, I can turn off the light. They're small things, but we give up the right to be right and do it. Another thing way we defer is to imagine ourselves in other people's shoes. Not, they would be too tight. I can only imagine how tight their shoes would be, but to understand how their life is. We defer when we imagine ourselves in their shoes, and so we understand or we treat them differently because we know what they're going through or what their life is like. The next one is honor preferences when possible. When possible, we can say, this isn't a big enough issue to me, I don't care, but they have a preference. I know that it's easy, especially when you're growing up with siblings, to go, I know they like it, that's why I didn't do it, to push buttons. But we have to kind of let Jesus change us so we can give honor their preferences. It sounds too familiar to y'all, don't it? Yeah. And then if there are conflicts, resolve conflicts biblically and kindly. How to deal with conflicts. Be willing to do that. Let's defer to holding grudges. Remember, we had that one to forgiveness. Holding a grudge, picking up a grudge might be the heaviest thing you ever carry. But that means we need to resolve conflicts. Even if others don't show deference to us, we do to them. Deference is not, as you can see, deference is not dependent on how they treat us. So whether they respond to us or not with anything different, we show deference because we're following Jesus, because we want to be like Jesus, because of love that he's given us. The fruit of the Spirit of love. This is one of the ways to show it. All right, do you have your other card? Even if others don't show deference to us. What? Resolve conflicts, biblically and kindly. All right, the next one, it may be weird to you that this word is, yes, what's the problem? What? Golden rule. Golden rule. I'll also be here after class if you need anything. Okay, the next word we're going to look at is attentiveness. And this may not even seem like a big deal, and also I can't find my notes on it. There it is. Attentiveness. But I don't have my card. I believe that attentiveness is a way we express love to others. Well, I will have to do it blind. All right, first off, attentiveness, the opposite word is unconcern. Did you have one that's all filled in? That's the one, yes. No, I meant I have filled in ones like this, and I'm missing the filled in one. Oh, maybe it's in my zipper. I think that's where I told her to put it. Yep, there it is. Attentiveness does not necessarily seem like anything that's really important. But as we go through it, I think you'll see that attentiveness is a wonderful expression of love. Yes. Yes, that's exactly. One of the things we're going to look into is how to listen because of attentiveness. So attentiveness, the opposite is neglect. And that is a weird, I know that's weird. But attentiveness is not just to, yes. Yeah, I don't know. I have two different places. I have the different word. Let's do unconcerned. Is that the one I said first? I like that one better. The reason I like that better is because when we're attentiveness to people, it isn't just listening to them, it is listening to them, but it's also being aware of what's going on in their life, that what they might be struggling with. It's being attentive to the needs of others and not just ourselves. And so here's our definition. But it also involves their words, okay? Showing the worth of a person by giving sincere attention to her words. Showing the worth of a person by giving sincere attention to her words. I used her, I could have used their, but that would be a plural after a singular, so. But I used her because I expected we'd be all women here today. You know, look at that. Showing the worth of a person. Are you telling me that by how I listen, how much I give attention to their words, I'm contributing to their self-worth, to how they feel valued? Absolutely. I think many wives don't feel valued as a wife because their husband doesn't pay attention to them. And that might be all their complaint could be. He doesn't pay attention. That's how important attentiveness can be in someone's life. We can make a difference. We're showing their worth. We're not just deferring, that was previously, but we're actually contributing to how they feel about what they're saying and about themselves. This verse is 1 Peter 1:22. Having purified your souls by your obedience to the truth for a sincere brotherly love, love one another earnestly from a pure heart. Do you notice these verses I have are not necessarily naming the word, but they're other verses about love and loving one another. And do you see how deep, how not surface these words can be, these verses can be about our love for one another? Here it is a sincere brotherly love, and it's earnest love for one another. That's pretty powerful love. Here's the first thing you need to note. Attentiveness doesn't just happen. We need to learn it. Attentiveness doesn't just happen. We need to learn it, to do it well, to do it with love, to do it in a way that does show the worth of the person. We have to learn it. Now, some of you have already learned it and you didn't know you were learning it. So you might say, I don't need to learn it. I already do it. Right, but that's because somewhere along the line, something caused you to learn it. I remember a pastor came to visit our home. His name was Floyd Nicholson. And he has an interesting story that he hardly told his story because I was a teenager at the time, or a young college student, and I could not believe how much he listened to everybody. It made an impression, him doing nothing but listening and asking the next question that led them to continue to talk. And ever since then, when I think of the word attentive, how I want to be, I think of Floyd Nicholson and how attentive he was. Not a bad example to follow anyway, knowing his life. I know Rebecca knows him, my mom knows him. I don't know if Alicia has met him at fellowship things. He's a very special person, yeah. Okay, so let's see, since we have to learn it, let's look at how do we get better at being attentive? How do we get better? To get better, number one, focus on asking follow-up questions. Focus on asking follow-up questions. And the reason is right there. It forces you to be attentive. If I want to be ready to keep them talking, to show attentiveness, I have to be ready with something that shows I was listening. So I could have just say focus on listening, but you could still look like you're listening. But if I know I want to come up with, and this is what Floyd Nicholson did, if I want to come up with something to comment or ask, I have to listen, or I won't know what to say. You can't just ask any question. Sometimes you ask a question after they talk a long time, it will be very obvious you weren't listening. They go, that has nothing to do with anyone. I've noticed this more as I'm hard of hearing. Because sadly, and I know I do it myself because of my hard of hearing, I listen, I really mean to listen, but you can try to listen, and then what you think you heard is completely different than what they said. And you say something thinking this is what they're on, and they're like, what does that have to do with it? Okay, I didn't hear you then. Yeah. Here's how to do that. Here's some things. Let someone else speak more than us. It makes them feel important and cared for. And then if we're going to ask relevant follow-up questions, they will feel even more important and cared for. If we actually continue and are interested in the subject they're talking about. A question sends the message that you are really listening. Some of the stuff I say is not on your paper. Okay. Okay, I'll tell you when we get to the next thing on your paper, so you can listen. A question back to them sends the message that you are really listening. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to come up with a good question. So it sends that. You don't have to say, I'm really listening. I'm really listening. I'm really listening. If we ask a question that shows we were really listening. It reinforces that you really are interested in what he or she is saying. And we should be, because it matters to them. If we didn't really care about what they were saying, why would we ask a question that would extend the conversation? That's how we show it. If we really didn't care about what them or what they're talking about, that this matters to them, we would not want to keep it going. But when we say, oh, but this, and ask a question, a follow-up question, that's a very good sign that we're really interested in what is important to them. Not because it's important to the world, but because it's important to them. More importantly, and that's the point I have, it forces you to listen attentively. Thinking of a question forces us to really pay attention. Okay, so the next one is learn. It says learn to use self prompts. Right under there, it says learn to use self prompts. The word is prompts, not prompt like on time. It's like a prompt they give an actor. Have you ever been in a play and you forgot a line? Or have you ever been the one who ever feeds the line? You watch and you see they're fading because they can't think of that next line. And you say, if you're in it live, you can say something that will remind them of their line. But if you're the prompter, you just say one thing that oh yeah, that's a line. And young actors, when I used to run plays, direct plays, is to get people to go, oh, not go, oh yeah, and then say their line. You tell them their line and they, instead of just saying it, they go, oh yeah, and then say it, which of course takes away the effect. So what are self prompts? One of the reasons we don't listen well is that we're too busy thinking of what we're going to say when they finish, not just a question, but what we have to say that shows we are what we want to tell about ourselves on perhaps the same topic or tangent topic. And so we're thinking of what I want to say next. So we have to change that focus. We get over this by providing ourselves, as we're listening, one-word clues. I'll demonstrate it. A one-word clue so we know what to ask. So if you try to remember a whole sentence, you'll stop listening. Just tell you. But if you just take a one-word clue like this. Suppose this person, you're talking to a friend about their new car. Now they really care about their new car and they want to tell you about it. Okay? I'm not showing attentiveness because I care about their car, but because I care about them. And this matters to them. I have this with some friends who really like cats. And I don't kick them or anything. I just don't, they're not my thing. But they are to this person. And so the way I show attentiveness and make her know that I care about her is by listening to things about cats. That's what we do. So anyway, your friend is telling you about her new car. She tells you that she can get into it and start it without using keys. Because that's a rather new thing. That would be new to me. I use a key. So then she starts to show you the sunroof or talk about it. But you put the word keys in your cue, in your self prompts. Just the word key or no keys if you need it. Because then when she pauses and you repeat it in your head, it won't mess you up, just no keys. Just keep that thought in your head until she stops talking. Then you ask, well, how can you do it without using keys? And just keeping no keys in my head reminded me it has a no key system. How do you do it then? How do you start it? How do you lock it? And so by keeping that one word in my head, and it takes learning to notice something oh, I want to ask, that's something I can ask about, or I do want to ask about. You ever get to an end of it when they stop talking, or finally stop talking, you forgot, you really had a sincere question, but it's been so long you forgot. So that's why you need those prompts, those self prompts, so you're ready and you can ask and remind yourself. And secondly, remember, it's not just about the words. Attentiveness is not just about the words. The words being spoken are important, but there are other clues to watch to show attentiveness. Be aware, for example, of your own body language. That's your blank. Be aware of your own body language. The words that are spoken are important. For example, if you're talking to someone, pay attention to your own body language. Their body language may be expressing themselves too, but we need to pay attention to our own body language, because here's what can happen. We want to think about our facial expression. But I'm listening. They don't look like you're listening, right? You want to look interested, especially watch the eyes, your own eyes, because it's real easy to, wow, what, yeah, and you're looking at everything else going on in the room. This is one of my least favorite ways to have somebody talk to me. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, well, that's fascinating. Our phone are replacing other distractions, but they're still a distraction. Was it distracting me? Perhaps it wasn't, but it looked like it was. And that's the way, that's what I'm saying. How it looks to them is part of what you have to watch. One is position of your arms. If someone comes up to you and says, or you go up to someone, I have something I really want to tell you. Oh, great. What's your first thought? They don't really want to listen to me. They're deferring. Oh, they're doing deference just for me. And you don't think that it isn't really valuing you or what you want to say, but they feel obligated. Cutting them off when something else comes up is something we have to work on, but there are times when that has to happen. But what we can do is be very careful to say, I want to hear what you're saying, but I have something interrupting me right now. I'll be right back. I don't want to just rush this because I want to hear what you have to say. I'm going to go handle this, or even a text. I have to answer this, but see, I hear my text message whether I like or not in my ear. I hear that it's there because of the hearing aids. And so it's going to keep beep until I answer it, and it's hard to pay attention. So I sometimes will say, I'm just going to turn off this so it doesn't bother me, and do that. Or else just say, just a minute, please hold that thought, because I really want to hear it, but I need to handle this real quickly. Either way, that expression of, I want to hear what you have to say. Even if you take them away, just say, can we go? I do that because of my hearing and because of my not wanting to stand. Standing is a hard thing for me if it goes too long. It's just saying, can we talk over here? Go to a seat and sit down. How much more worth does that make them feel that I want to hear what they have to say? Now tell me what you wanted to tell me. Oh, your car's on fire. So you have to probably be careful. So be aware of your own body language. And number 3, and we'll close with this, 3 words there. The first word is practice. And the second word is practice. Guess what the third word is? Practice. The way to learn attentiveness is to practice being attentive. And some people are hard to listen to. But if we tell ourselves, I'm going to look for a follow-up question, I'm going to try to really attend and not let my eyes wander, not let my body speak differently than what I really want, not because I want to be Floyd Nicholson, but because I want to listen and show love, to show the worth of that person to me by paying close attention to their words. Mark 4:23 and 24. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. And he said to them, pay attention to what you hear. With the measure you use, it will be measured to you, and still more will be added to you. This sounds, all he's talking about is to pay attention to what you hear. And then he says, how you listen, the measure you do will be measured to you. You think people don't listen to you as well as you like? Try being the one who starts being more attentive to them. You may be surprised. Well, if I start listening to them, it'll take hours for them to finish. Maybe if you pay full attention, they don't have to go so long. When you're trying to get out of the conversation the whole time, they think they have to keep talking or you'll walk away. So attentiveness, I hope you can see it's definitely an expression of love. And I think unconcern is to not care what they're saying. Yes, Suzanne.
I like the fact that you say that those prompts, and so you can follow the question. But what I found is also helpful sometimes is to make an affirming, specific affirming statement. Oh, I've never heard that before, that you can do this. Or, oh, that's something new to me.
And if they're wanting to go on and they pause and you say, I'm interested in more to know more about that. If you want to finish first, but let's come back to that. Then you've actually already taken not having to think of that word continually in your mind too. Lord, I thank you that you are attentive to us, that you listen to our prayers, that you listen to our hearts, that you give us full attention. We can know that you're listening. And so I pray that you'll help us to follow your example and to learn to be more attentive. And Lord, help us in the area of deference, that you will show us times when we're holding on to our freedom, when we could be less offensive and more helpful to people by showing deference. Thank you, Lord, for love. Help us to be better and better at showing it. In Jesus' name, amen.